Welcome to the VietCon's webinar series. And now today, it's our webinar today is by Deborah Healey. And Deborah Healey was the former president of the board of directors of TESOL International Association. And as an online and face-to-face teacher educator, she writes and presents extensively internationally, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, US, on appropriate use of technology in language teaching. And her doctorate is in computers and in education, and her website with resources and more information can be found at deborahhealey.com. And the topic of today's webinar is gamification, opportunities and challenges in language education. The webinar will explore how gamification can boost learner engagement and motivation. And the participant will learn some game theory, basic and effective classroom application, and we may experience interactive gamified activities during the workshop and gain strategies to apply gamification in your teaching. Now it's time to begin our webinar. It's over to you, Deborah.
Excuse me, Dr. Deborah, could you turn on your micro? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about gamification, which is one of my favorite topics, but gamification is different from playing games. And you'll see, as I talk about it, what this means. Before we get going, I'm curious to see in the chat what grades, what language levels you teach, how long you've been teaching, and where you're located. So please do put in the public chat little information about yourself. What have you been doing as a teacher? Who do you teach? What level? What grade? Where are you located? Because I am curious to know. Feel free to go to the public chat and type in a little bit of information. While you're doing that, what you see in the top right corner is a map of Oregon. And we'll be using this map as a way of gamifying what we're doing in this workshop today. And I'll talk some more about it in a moment. So hopefully we will be able to see what people are up to. I'm just going to take a moment for this because we have a lot to talk about. So please do feel free to keep adding information about yourself as we start. So let me start by talking about the game plan for today's workshop. Getting started, some fundamentals, then getting ready to gamify what the process would be, and maybe small group planning or individual, depending on how much time we have, and then talk about some outcomes. So this is the plan for today. And one of the things about what we're doing today is that it's going to be a gamified workshop. So you will have the opportunity to experience a bit of gamification in ways that you might want to apply in your own class. So let's get going. We have some challenges and quests. So the basic challenges are the tasks during the workshop, and you'll be collecting pieces of the map as we do this. Then you have a simple quest to be able to explain 3 game mechanics to a colleague by the end of the workshop. An advanced quest is to create a plan to gamify your whole class, which you probably won't do right now, but hopefully you will be able to think about doing it, especially with all the resources you will have. There will be a website with a lot of resources for you, a Google site at the end. But to get started, you will need a piece of paper and a pencil. You need to draw a table with 2 rows and 7 columns, and add your name. Why don't you take a few moments here? You can certainly do it on Word or in a digital format as well, but we need something that has 2 rows and 7 columns. And it's often easier just to do this on a piece of paper. So take a moment, grab a piece of paper, do your 2 rows, 7 columns, and put in your name. This is our first step, put in your name. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to find a piece of paper and get ready to do this. Because if you created a scorecard, then in the scorecard column, you will give yourself 100 points and collect your reward. So the reward is from Eastern Oregon. It is a piece of the Oregon map. Now, you would use a map of Vietnam or a map of the world or a map of something that your learners are learning about. I mean, because I'm not as familiar with Vietnam, I didn't want to try to divide it into regions. So you're getting a little bit of information about Oregon. You'll see at the end the QR code and a link to a website where you can collect all of these together. But because you hopefully created a scorecard and got 100 points, you can now get a piece of the map, the piece that is Eastern Oregon. Because what we're doing with this workshop is creating a plan, a path, like a treasure hunt. And so that the end will be a map. You could create anything as something that comes in pieces that you can allocate when people do a task or achieve a milestone. But let's now talk about gamification and some fundamentals here. So of course, what is gamification? What do I mean by gamification? This is the classic definition by CAP, adding elements of games and gaming to regular activities that we don't normally think of as games. It's not playing games. It's adding elements of games and gaming to things that are not games. And so this was done to motivate. Now, businesses have done this for a very long time. You know, if you go to any shop that gives you points or little rewards that you can collect, this is how businesses use gamification. They make the collecting of points for rewards very fun. I don't know if you recognize this white star and a gold circle, but it's a common coffee shop that started in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm from. And so, you know, with gamification, it's used by businesses because what they want to do is they want you to motivate you to come and to keep coming. This is very like what we want of our students. We want them to come to class and keep coming, to do the work and to keep doing the work. So it is a way of motivating behavior using gamification elements. Now, in education, according to CAP, you've got game-based mechanics, and I'll talk more about what those are, aesthetics, and game thinking to engage, motivate, promote learning, and solve problems. So this is largely the same as what businesses are doing, but we also want to promote learning in the classroom with gamification. So it's not just playing a game, it's setting the environment so that your classroom feels different. This is the aesthetics and the game thinking. So one way of looking at game thinking is, you know, we normally think of students, and I'm sure your students are generally very studious people. If you're like my students, they're mostly studious with a few other people, but they're students. They're passive, they're studying, but when we gamify, we change them from passive students to active players. It's a very different way of thinking about the learning environment, where they become active players in the gamified environment, rather than sitting there waiting for the teacher to tell them what to do. And they're still listening to you, they're still following instructions, but it's a way of thinking about the classroom that changes, that they are players in the gamified classroom. So reflect just for a moment. I'd like you to just reflect here on how active are your students, and how do you motivate them? Just think about this for a moment, because we'll be coming back to this concept of active learning and motivating throughout this workshop. So hopefully your students are very active and very motivated. If you're like me, many of your students are, and some are not. And as I'll talk about later, it's the worry about the ones who are not that pushed me into looking at gamification. So if you thought of some things when you reflected, give yourself 30 points in the discussion column. You're discussing with yourself right now, but you give yourself 30 points if you came up with some ideas about whether your students were active and how you motivated them. So at this point, you could have a total of 130 points. And the next piece is Central Oregon, where we have skiing at Mount Bachelor, usually from October until April. It gets a little dry in May, June, July, and August, in the summer. But Central Oregon is another very large part of Oregon that has very few people, but great skiing on Mount Bachelor. So again, you have another piece of the map. You're building your map. You're achieving this goal of creating a map. All right, so why would you want to try to gamify an activity or a class? Well, if your students are not in their 50s and 60s, they use game as a verb. If you have people who are teens, young adults, game is a verb. They game. And if you do gamification well, it helps students achieve the learning outcomes that you've set. They can move from extrinsic to intrinsic motivation, as the enjoyment of doing things and getting rewards becomes enjoyment for learning. It's also a technique for motivating in large classes because of many aspects of the way that gamification works. So I got started with this when I saw this great little video. If we have time at the end, I'll show you. Otherwise, it's on the resource list, about how grades can hurt. If you think about grades, you have somebody who walks into your class the first day, new school year, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to do a great job. I know I've got it. It'll be great. First quiz. Well, maybe, not so great. Then the homework. Oh, dear. Not so good. Then the test. Flunk. Not so good after all. Grades go down. Unless, you're one of the superstars, which are wonderful. The superstars are always doing really well. So they stay up there. But for other people, grades go down. Your A+ that you started with becomes A, B+, B-. It drops with grades. It's how grades work. Points, on the other hand, go up. You start at 0 for everyone, and you add as you build points. You don't go down in points. You only add points. And points can be translated later into grades, of course. But what you're getting is this sense of progress. It's what games do. You don't, sort of suddenly, get docked a lot of points in games usually. You usually keep going up. And it really changes the way that students see how they're doing, especially the ones who aren't always at the very top. Oh dear, I got 99 out of 100. I mean, you can have those people, but they aren't the ones who need gamification. They are motivated. It's the ones who see their grades drop with a test, drop with a quiz, drop with homework, that need something that says, I can do this, that helps them feel like they're moving up. So now that we've talked a little bit about gamification and, what it is and why to think about it, let's talk about how we might put it into a classroom. So these are the questions. How can you create a game feeling and game thinking in the classroom? And game thinking is, I can succeed. I can do better. I'm not going to quit. That's what you get with game thinking. And how do you make classroom activities more game-like? So these are the questions that we're going to be working on as we go through the workshop. So there are a lot of things that we do in teaching that are the same as game mechanics. But the game mechanics are the techniques that game designers use to keep you playing games, to get you motivated to play and to keep you playing. And so we do a lot of these, but we don't call them the same thing as the game mechanics. So I'd like you to do a little matching thing right now where you think about what game mechanic is what in teaching. And I'll give you one to start with. That will be party or team is group work. Very simple. So now look at what would experience points be, what's player versus player, what's a level, what's badges. Take a couple minutes and think about what it is that, what game mechanic means what teaching term. And feel free to post your ideas in the chat of what you think. Or if you feel like just, keeping your ideas private, you can write it on your piece of paper. But what do you think? Which game mechanic maps to which teaching term? So let's just take a minute or two and see what you come up with. You can do it by number and letter or words or whatever. We've got some good ideas here. Remember, we do all these things in the classroom, and we can use game terms for them. All right, let's see how you did. Some of these are pretty obvious. Well, experience points, sort of like grades. Remember, points go up, grades go down, but you get XPs, experience points, XPs, for doing things in the same way that you get grades for doing things. And I'll be talking more about ways that you can do experience points in a classroom. Player versus player, I think a lot of you got this one. Competition, it's one thing that you can do. A level can be like a unit. You've achieved a certain point in the classroom, a certain point in the syllabus. That's a level. The thing with levels is levels go up. You don't drop in levels either. So when you've achieved a unit or a certain skill, you can achieve the level. Badges, it's stars and such. I mean, we do less of this with adult learners and than we do with young learners, but what I found was that people like badges. I mean, you may have noticed this where people are getting badges for various things and sharing them on social media. Countdown, time limit. So time limit can be tricky, but as countdown using the team approach, it can be really helpful. Game constraints. All games have rules, so do our classes. And a quest is a large project. So it's like you can use the word assignment or you can use the word challenge. You can use the word project or you can use the word quest. And the point here is that what you're going to do is use game language to start to build game feeling in the classroom. Because, you know, if you're just doing things that you've always done, your students will be as motivated as they've always been. Some people very motivated, other people not. So if you switch it up a bit, you change things, you're using points, you're using different terms, you're opening the door to a different level of motivation for your less motivated students. If you got anything correct, give yourself 30 points for each correct match. And if you got all 6 right, you get an extra 70 points, so you get 250 points. Clearly, the points are arbitrary. You know, I've chosen to give more points, less points, but the point is that you get points for doing things. And that's, you're getting a point, you're getting points for doing different challenges. So hopefully you got some points on this one, and your reward is Southern Oregon. Eastern Oregon, Central Oregon, and Southern Oregon are all very large chunks of the state that are really pretty empty. In Southern Oregon, we have the beautiful Crater Lake, which, you know, is a lovely place to go visit. And, you know, Ashland has a Shakespeare festival, which is nice, but there's not much going on in these parts of the state. Obviously, if you were teaching a class that included geography, this would be a great way to do it. But you can choose anything that you can divide into chunks in order to add this longer term goal of completing a map or completing a task or finding a treasure. Now let's look at some more game mechanics. We talked about a few of them that match our teaching tips. Now let's look at a number of other game mechanics. Here's a typical sample activity in grammar. I mean, you're going to mark the adverbs happily, suddenly, very, however, quickly. Oh, oops, okay. So, you know, this is a very typical grammar activity. Often where learners do it individually, maybe with a partner, we can gamify this. Instead of just being, you know, okay, mark these, you're going to get experience points for doing it. If you're doing it with a partner, we have another style of points that you can choose to use called collaboration points. I'll talk more about that later. But at least you're going to get experience points for doing this. You can have a countdown, a time limit. You can have an achievement if people get them all right. And then if this is the end of a unit where you've been studying adverbs and people have achieved a certain level of proficiency, you can get a badge. So you have an adverb badge. So all of these pieces are game mechanics that can be added to the class. A few more: team play, competition, challenge. I know we do a lot of competition in our classes, and I mean, it's a nice thing to do. The people who like competition really like it. The thing that I found over the years was that there are people who love competition who are good at it. And then there are people who don't really like it. And they don't say anything because they don't want anybody to know that, oh, gee, everybody else seems to love this, but I don't really like it. And it's especially the people who don't do as well with it who don't like it. And those are way better people for collaboration, for team play, than competition. And challenge is what we call things that are a little more difficult tasks or different kinds of homework or a range of things. These are all game mechanic words. Then, of course, the PBL of gamification, points, badges, and levels. You get points, as I said, for whatever you do. And you can give points for different types of things. You can have different types of points. The badges are for achievements, special achievements. You've come to a certain point in your skill level or a certain number of experience points, you can get a badge. And then there are levels. For example, completing a unit, you can achieve that level. These are some sample badges that you can create with online tools, which are listed in the resource list. Because I'm a terrible artist, so I rely on online tools like this. So this is the classic thing with gamification, points, badges, and levels. The thing about points, badges, and levels is that they have to be meaningful. If you give points for something that really isn't related to what students are learning, it just doesn't matter as much. If you're getting points or getting a badge for something that you've achieved, then it's way better. So we're going to hope that you're thinking about this carefully, and we'll later talk about how to think about this carefully, and coming up with things that are of value to your learners to get points for. Now, another common thing that we do is, sort of spelling lists, word lists, so this is, for example, you have a weekly word list score. How many points did you get on the word quiz this week, on vocabulary quiz this week? Week 1, you got 12. Week 2, you did well, 16. Week 3, you got 13. Week 4, you did really well. But it goes up and down. It's just going up and down all the time. Where's the sense of progress here? It's like, okay, 1 week I did better, another week I didn't. But if we count total words instead, the line keeps going up. And you have a very clear sense of progress. And this is something that in language teaching, it's often hard to get the sense of progress. Things you don't necessarily see your progress over time. But instead of just taking the number of words per week, we're adding them up. It's both an accurate reflection of the words learned and a motivating tool because you see progress. Look at the number of words you've learned. So very simple thing to do, but very powerful. And then another very common piece of gamification is recovery. So you're playing humans versus zombies and you get eaten by a zombie. Your game is temporarily over, right? You come back. You aren't done. You come back. And that's the thing, that if our learners have the sense that they can come back, they will persist in the same way that gaming encourages persistence, that gamers keep coming back. They keep fighting the zombies. They keep trying to find the treasure. They keep doing stuff because they can recover. Now, in a gamified classroom, you use recovery with ways to do make-up points. You don't need to do this for everybody. In my class, my high achievers would miss like 2 points and they'd want to redo an essay. I would say, no, I'm not reading your essay again for 2 points. But the people who really didn't do well, I would say, okay, here's what you need to do. Here are the things you can do to do it over, do it again. We'll get you more points. We'll move you back into the okay column. So whatever it is, you give people an opportunity to recover, to get more points so they can feel like they continue to make progress. This is a really good game mechanic to be using in the classroom. And it means you're coming back to the people who are weaker and helping them catch up and be part of the learning experience as well. Ownership is something that we often do. It doesn't have to be bringing your cat to class. It's where people are contributing their own information to a shared project. They're bringing their own pictures to show. They're bringing their own stories to tell. So it's the sense of ownership. And this is, again, very important in games and gamification because you have avatars, you have things that show, this is mine. And we can do this in our classrooms a lot more obviously. And many of us do it already, but we can do it really obviously as well. Classic game mechanic, epic meaning. These are the Avengers, they're fighting the evil, the evil in the world, Thanos or whatever. So we aren't Avengers, but we can make epic meaning in our classes, and it's by taking an activity that brings learners outside the class, that brings what they do outside the class, brings outside the class in. This is an example of a learner who's recording his grandmother's story. It is epic because it's something that's very personal. It's preserving her words. It's doing something big. Anytime you do project-based learning, for example, if the project is going to be shared outside the classroom, that's moving in this direction of epic. Students will do things for us because we're their teacher. But they much about what they're doing for us. I mean, sure, they do it because they're good students, but, it may not be something that they really want to do. So, looks like I need to share my screen again. Yes, okay, that's good. So hopefully you can see my screen. Let's see. Are you seeing my screen?
Not yet, Doctor.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah, because I don't see it anymore on the image there. So epic meaning is taking your classroom activity and making it broader than the classroom. Let's look at some examples. Oh, okay, let's start sharing the screen again. Okay, some examples. All right. So one example, we do oral presentations, right? A lot of us do oral presentations. So hopefully now you can see the screen. So
yes.
Instead of just doing, okay, great, thank you. And instead of just doing oral presentations in the class as the normal way, we say, okay, you're going to get points using a rubric, so it's very clear. You can have community collaboration where people are working with others to help them refine their presentation. You have ownership. If they're talking about something that's important to them, maybe they're bringing in an object or a picture. You can have progression if you're recording the number of minutes spoken. So that, like what we did with vocabulary words, the number of minutes that students speak can also go up when you're tracking all of this. And then if the presentation ends up shared publicly, you're pulling into the epic meaning category. So these are all things that we can do with pretty ordinary stuff that we do in the classroom. Project-based learning is classic for gamification. I mean, obviously you can use it in large classes. You're setting up groups. Different groups are different teams. Large projects become epic meaning. You can give points to groups and to individuals. So you have a lot of different things that you can do with project-based learning and gamification. Now, when you're creating teams, one thing that's really important to do if you're creating a team is making sure that you are not putting all the high achievers together if you're giving points. Oops, let me do the screen share again.
Excuse me. The screen sharing has ended.
Okay, let me try putting it back again. Okay, so hopefully you can see it now.
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Okay.
we saw it.
Right. Yeah, nothing like, shaky stuff. All right. But with project-based learning, remember, teams have to be done with, if you're doing points, make sure that everybody can end up with roughly equal points by making sure that you don't let all the high achievers sit together. They will want to, because they want to have maximum points. But then the people who aren't high achievers are going to be left out. And we don't want to leave people out in our gamified classroom. All right, now is your chance to try something. And we're going to hopefully let you try this. This is a way for you to create your own challenge. So your challenge will use some of the ideas that I've told you about. You can do something like oral presentations, you can do vocabulary, you can do grammar, but you want to use some of these elements in it. If you go to the QR code, or let me put in the link, url.com, Q1. I'll put in the put it into the chat, the link to where you'll find this information. This will let you see how to share some ideas. So hopefully, let me pull this up again. I'm going to pull this up so you can see what I'm talking about here. Let me find what I do with the big blue button. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this one and start sharing this, and start sharing a different one. And let me share, oh no, it doesn't want to share the window that I want it to share. Okay, let me stop. Okay. I'm going to go back over here, share this one. Okay, anyway, hopefully you can get to this location, and now let me try this again. Okay, let me start sharing, and hopefully you will see, yes, the thing that lets you share your ideas on this Google site. On this Google slide. So I put the groups more or less at random. Feel free to choose whatever group you want. I was trying to divide people up in case we had a whole lot of people. But if your family name begins with A through C, you'll go to group 1. You can click here and it will go to group 1. And then this is what you want to talk about. What can you do to a classroom activity? So can you see how to do that? I hope so. And then if your last name is, if you have a different last name, it will let you jump to the group 7. So think about how could you use these different things that I've been talking about in a classroom activity. So let me bring this back to where you can see the link again. And the QR code is in the chat. So you can use the QR code or the link that's in the chat to try to get to this site. This is also a technique
Sorry,
for
doctor,
creating...
we cannot edit the slides.
Oh, okay, let me change that. I am sorry. Let me change the sharing and change that to, oh, my bad, editor. Okay, now you should be able to edit the slides. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, there's always something more. Okay, so now you should be able to edit the slides. Just go in, add your ideas, and share some ideas with each other. Remember, I've been talking about different ways that you could do this, different classroom activities. So it's your chance to write down a few ideas. So remember, I mean, we can look at oral presentations and what we talked about before, word lists, okay, project-based learning, different kinds of activities you can do using game elements, team play, count down the time limit, competition as opposed to team play, points, progression, recovery. Remember, epic meaning is if they're taking things outside the classroom, and ownership, if they're bringing their own information into the classroom. So let's take a few minutes and see how, see what ideas you can come up with. A couple of people are maybe adding some ideas. Feel free to add ideas. And there are many things that you could do with this. So think about how you might be able to change a common classroom activity into something different. And then click into the main box and add your ideas. Okay, oh, game-based activities, look good. Mind mapping, nice. So a lot of possibilities here. And if you want, group one seems to be busy. Feel free to add to group one. It has a lot of people in it. Or you can go into one of the other groups if you prefer. Any ideas? Oh, it looks good. I'm seeing a few nice ideas here. And if you're playing tag, remember which game mechanic are you using? Are they going to have a countdown? Is there going to be a time limit? Are they going to get points for it? Are they going to play in teams? Okay, so remember, you can do games, you can do all sorts of things, but you have to think about what game mechanics you're going to do with whatever you're choosing for your activity. Okay, and we definitely want to make sure that everybody is involved, because that's really important to make sure everybody gets involved. Okay, very good. The levels, okay, assigning a new task when it's been completed. Okay, that's definitely a leveling approach that one could take. Sounds good. Yeah, a lot of great ideas here. Okay, but I want to have a little time for discussion at the end, so feel free to come back to this or to write more, but for now, we are sadly going to need to move on. And if you did anything, if you had an idea or a comment, give yourself 50 points. If you had, you can even be thinking about this rather than actually typing it in, but, if you added something, definitely give yourself some points. And another part of the map. This is the Oregon coast. It looks, not really like, more like Vietnam than the rest of Oregon. But because it is the coast, you have a sea lion here that you have earned for doing this activity. So many different activities that you can do. And I'll talk about some more as we go on as well. But at this point, we need to plan out how you're going to gamify. If you can scan the QR code, you can follow along, but you can wait until I describe the things first and then go look at the worksheet. So we want to plan to gamify. There are 6 pieces to planning. You need to decide if you're going to do part or all of your course, set challenges and quests, decide about points, plan rewards, rename, and create the environment. Now let me talk about each of these. So you can start small. You can choose a skill area or a project like project-based learning to gamify. But you need to be consistent. We can't do vocabulary in a gamified way this week and not next week. So you have to plan ahead a little bit, but if you're doing your whole course, you definitely need to plan ahead so that it can be set up appropriately. I use the syllabus to do the challenges and quests. So you're thinking about your learning outcomes. The major tasks become quests. The minor tasks are called challenges. This can be like homework, can be a challenge. If you can, you want to incorporate epic meaning. You want to use project-based learning if that works for you, but you're looking at your syllabus to come up with what are the things you're going to call quests, what things are you going to call challenges. Because once you do that, you can assign points. So experience points, you get higher number for harder assignments. A quest will have a lot more points than a simple homework assignment. So a larger project, more points, smaller activity, fewer points. But the other thing is you can choose to value more than one scale. For me, I always had 2 scales. One was experience points based on, homework and other assignments, all of the different things. And the other was collaboration points. Did people share ideas with each other? Did they help each other? Did they work in groups? And so you got collaboration points for doing things that helped other people. Not too surprisingly, the people who got really high experience points did not necessarily do really well on collaboration. So it was important for me to have both of those pieces together. And you could not pass the class if you only got high experience points and didn't collaborate at all. So that was, but you are making this choice. You are choosing to what you give points for. And you're looking at the assignments on your syllabus, you're figuring it out, and you need to make sure you require the quests so that people can't just get a lot of points and say, okay, I'm done. They also have to do your major projects, the quests. Next, you plan rewards. What are your levels? Are you doing a level based on points, based on textbook units, achieving a skill, having a certain level in your progression? It's your choice. How are you going to assign levels? And then badges, you can give badges for points. People like them. They need to feel authentic. Here you can see 2 different types of badges. The round ones there were ones that I did with a computer app, with a website. The other ones were done by, one of my learners who got collaboration points for creating badges. And so it was great because everybody liked her badges, they're more interesting than mine. And she got collaboration points for doing it because it was helpful to the whole class. And she had ownership because these were her badges that got shared. So you're thinking about the rewards. What will be your points? What will be the badges? What will be the levels? Then you're going to rename. What we talked about at the beginning was game language. So now we're going to rename. It's not an assignment. It's now a challenge. Because that's how you're starting to change the feel in your class. You're changing the environment by using game language in your class. Last step is to create the environment. Obviously, you have to explain what you're doing and how the points work. Everyone starts at 0 and goes up. The people who are least happy with this will be your superstars, your students that are used to getting 100% on everything, 100% everywhere. Well, they want to still get their 100%. And you're saying, no, everybody's going up. To be frank, I don't worry about the superstars. I try to keep them motivated. I try to give them challenging assignments, but I don't worry about them. I worry about the people who want to do well, but are having some problems getting motivated. And so having points where everyone starts at 0 and goes up helps those people. You talk about the types of points, you talk about the badges, you need to talk about, what grades mean. You're going to use game language, and you're going to emphasize ownership. You have learners contribute to whatever you're making. So we'll see, we have time for a small group work, but what you're going to do now is there is a worksheet that you can use to plan what you might do. Start by deciding, you set your challenges and quests, calculate your points. I mean, this is something that you would probably do with more time. Find the total, you want to have epic meaning, plan the levels and badges, you rename, and you explain. So these are the different steps that you have to go through. Now, I don't think we have time for a breakout room if we want you to have a chance to share what you're doing. So why don't you use the QR code, or let me put in the chat, it's going to be tinyurl.com, be it all to, okay, be it all to, okay. So hopefully that, oops, it might need to have the HTTP at the beginning of it, sorry. Yeah, so take a look at the worksheet, and in a moment I'll show you. Okay, that should actually be clickable. So the worksheet is a guide, and we aren't going to have a lot of time to do all of this now. So you can take a look, you can think about how you'll start, you'll see how far you get with it. So let's take about, let's take about 3 minutes for you to look at the worksheet, so that we'll have a little time at the end for Q&A and maybe to share some ideas. But take a look at the worksheet here. Let me bring that up so that you can actually see the worksheet. Okay, worksheet. There we go. Let me see if I can share this one. No, cancel. I want to share. Oh, I don't want to show the entire screen. I'll show this window. There we go. Hopefully you can now see what I'm talking about, the worksheet. This will help you as you think about what you're trying to do with gamification in your class. Let you do it step by step to go through and figure out how it's going to work. After you do this a couple of times, you can get faster at it. It usually took me about 20 minutes to do a full class. If you're just doing one element, you're just doing your vocabulary work, or you're doing your writing, it'll be shorter. But if you're doing a whole class, 20 to 30 minutes maybe to get this done. So hopefully you're able to take a look at this, think about what you're going to do with this. And this is one where I want you to download it rather than write in this one. So please do download this if you want to use it. And then you can add your own ideas for your class. Hopefully, this will be pretty clear as you work through this. You think about how you're going to do it. I know we went in as language teachers because maybe we don't like math very much, but it's not that hard to figure out what things are worth more points and what things are worth fewer points. So hopefully you will be able to figure that out without too much trouble. And again, if you're using a syllabus, then it's really pretty straightforward and easy. While I'm showing you this, I'll also point out that you see a CC by mark at the bottom. This means you're welcome to use, to edit, to share, but you need to give me credit if you're going to use it pretty much as is. But if you're using it as the basis of something else that you're doing, that's fine. So you're welcome to use it as long as you do give me credit for something that I have created. All right, so let me go back to, stop sharing that one, bring this one back up. In this window, okay. So hopefully you're now able to see this stuff. And, okay. I hope you had a chance to at least look through this and think about it because there are instructions there. And then if you did think about it, you get 50 points if you had an idea. 100 points if you were thinking about sharing your ideas. And the reward here is what we call the Willamette Valley. This is where most of the population lives outside of Portland, Oregon. The Golden Man is on top of the state capitol building, cute looking. Again, you aren't going to share a map of Oregon, probably. You're much more likely to share a map of Vietnam with places that are significant to you, or a map of your city, if you're doing a map at all. You can also do a treasure hunt. There are many different approaches to take to creating a whole storyline within your gamified classroom. So now that we're coming to the end, we have a very quick poll for you. You can put A, B, C, or D in the chat. Excuse me. What do you think about gamifying? A, if you're ready. B, try a few things. C, you gotta think about it. Or D, and no, I don't think so. So feel free to post A, B, C, or D in the chat. And it's perfectly fine if you want to think about it, maybe try a few things. But I hope that, you'll use the worksheet to help you if you want to actually start to gamify. Because remember, gamification is about creating a mindset. It's about creating an environment, a motivating environment for your learners. It's not about using games. You can use games, but it's not what gamification is about. Gamification is about a learning environment that's motivating and that motivates our weaker learners as much as our stronger learners. So that's, it's just something that I hope that you've gained a few ideas from this workshop. And if you're here, you get 50 points. So because you got through the workshop. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your being here. You get Portland, Mount Hood. I live in Portland, and Mount Hood is the beautiful mountain that I can see if I'm going out toward East Portland. And this is the map that, and you can get all of this stuff here. So the worksheets and handouts are all there. I need to add I will add the presentation as well. That's not here yet. That's not in there yet. But so you can find all of these things. My website also has a lot of stuff for you. So please do feel free to find things, download things, and I hope that you will try. do feel free to let me know if you have questions, as you have my email here. It would be great to see any questions that you may have. Or, you can ask some questions now. Now we're in Q&A time. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And hopefully now we can let people raise a hand if you want to talk or type in the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deborah. And now it's time for you to raise question. If you have any question, please write your questions in the chat box. And we have got some questions you've asked while you register yourself at the webinar, and because of the limit of time, so I think I have to choose some of the main point. Let me read the first one. Seen as game design have become much more polished now than in the past, while gamified learning and educational games aren't as developed. What approach should a teacher take to engage students when they exhibit disinterest in gamified activity due to its lack of polish and quality?
Part of what's going on here is using games in the classroom. And games are different from gamification. Our learners are really familiar with beautiful graphics, all of the stuff in the games. But that's not the same as creating the game environment, which is the classroom. Having points, having badges, having levels, using game language for the classroom. That's different from just using games. One way to deal with games that aren't as fun for the learners is to ask them to design their own. For example, there are a lot of templates out there. You can have learners work as teams to design, say, Jeopardy games. They aren't going to be polished, but your learners will be so happy because they're their game. It's, I want my friends to play my game. So don't worry about whether they're polished. If your students are making them, they aren't going to care. There you have ownership, and ownership is worth a lot more than a beautifully designed commercial game. So that if you're going to use games, I'd suggest you have learners create them, because then they're going to be excited about them. Crossword puzzles, a lot of templates out there for a variety of games.
Thank you. The second question. In Vietnam, English lessons are relatively short, about 30 minutes in primary school and 50 minutes in secondary and high schools. Class sizes are also large, typically ranging from 45 to 50 students. Since classrooms are located right next to each other, noise from one class can easily disrupt the others. Do you have any suggestion for managing the class more effectively so that more students can participate in games within the limited time while keeping the noise level under control?
Yeah, large classes are a real challenge. It's going to be noisy in a large class if they are participating. You can have them working in teams, in groups, and this is where I do think project-based learning is an excellent approach if you're able to use it, because then you can set the tasks for people to do, and they're doing them as a group. And that way they're starting to build their ability, and if they're doing it with other people, they may be willing to do it outside of class as well. If you're choosing a project that they care about, they probably will do it outside of class. Something like, map your neighborhood. Talk to some of your neighbors about what's most important in the neighborhood. Mark the best places. And if they have access to Google Maps, they can use a Google map as the basis for this. But something like that, that gives them a reason to go outside the classroom and be, they can be talking in Vietnamese to their neighbors, obviously, but to come back and create something with English in it. The other thing to think about is Google Maps lets you add stuff to Google Maps, and they can create a custom map for a tourist or whatever, but that would be using English in their custom map that they are sharing with the world. And this becomes epic because it is way outside the classroom once they are adding things to, a map. Or any kind of project like that, something that builds, that they need to use English with in the final product, but they don't necessarily need to use English in the intermediate steps. But again, as Daniel says, noisy isn't necessarily bad. It's a matter of trying to keep the noise level to where your groups can hear each other. Each group can hear within the group, and that's usually the biggest challenge.
Okay. Yeah. Now there's a questions in the chat box from Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you make sure the strong ones don't take over the groups? This is where, if you can see what people are doing in the classroom, that's where collaboration points come in. If the weak ones aren't encouraged to participate, the strong ones don't get collaboration points. And if you need collaboration points to succeed, they're not going to get them. So they have to make sure that the weaker ones also are participating, are also there. Now, you can always have somebody who chooses not to show up at all. I wouldn't reduce the score of the group for somebody that has never shown up, or just doesn't show up. But I think there are ways that within the group, you can negotiate so that everybody has to participate in order to get the maximum points, both as experience points and as overall collaboration points. You can also have, different people with different tasks, and the group points also depend on the individual task points being done by that person. It's always hard. Group work is really hard. But I think if you have things that your weaker students can do and the stronger students are encouraged to make sure that the weaker ones are participating, this will get you closer. It's not 100%. Nothing works 100% in group work, but hopefully it gets you a little closer. Okay. Any other questions?
Any more questions from the participant? But we still have this question for you. What are the main challenges in evaluating the effectiveness of gamification in language learning? How do cultural differences influence the design and the set of gamified learning activities?
That's a really good question, because when you're thinking about how you do gamification, most people have both collaboration and competition as motivators. Most people will see gaining points either individually or with others as being highly motivating. And I think you think about how do you set it up so that you are building on, for me, it's building on the collaboration side so that you do bring everybody into the picture. What I've seen over the years of teaching has been that my most competitive people tend to be the ones who get the best grades. They get the best grades both because they are highly competitive and that's something that really motivates them. The weaker learners lose in a competitive environment, so in a highly competitive environment, which is why I really like the collaboration points. I really like setting things up so there's more collaboration in it. And I think anywhere you go, you're going to find these two elements, competition and collaboration. And it's a matter of trying to balance them so that all your learners can really participate. Young people all over the world are gamers too, something to think about. I don't think there's much of anywhere where young people are not playing games and don't understand game mechanics. So it's something that I think you can build on, just about anywhere you are.
Yeah, there's one more questions in the chat.
What will students do at the points at the end of class? Okay, I think what you define, you're looking at your syllabus, you're looking at the quests. You say, okay, in order to pass the class, you must get this many points on the quests. You must get this many points, experience points, collaboration points. Then you sort of set the tiers. This is passing. This is C, B, A. So that you set those tiers based on the points and they know what those are. Your high achievers will be extremely upset if they don't know their goal. Their goal is the maximum points. So at the end of the class, then the goal, it translates into grades because most of us have to work with grades, right? Badges can be physical or like the ones that you saw, they were digital, but I was sort of surprised. Adults as well as teens and children all seem to like badges. So, it was one of the things I was most curious about when I started having gamified classes. Would my adult learners like badges? And they did. It's like, okay, fine. Hey, you like getting badges. If they're digital, I had a couple of people who posted them on their social media. It's like, okay. Other people just liked having them, sharing them with their friends or family. The badges can be physical if that's easy for you to do, but they don't have to be. They can be digital.
Any more questions from participants?
Okay, I have now put the a PDF of my talk, the PowerPoint into that the Google Drive. So the thing that you had before, somebody posted in the chat. Where was it? Oh, that's the forms one. Yeah, that if you're using that, then if you go to the gamification website that was on the sorry, in the PowerPoint, then you'll see that.
So with your permission, we will share with the people or members of our community in Vietnam.
Good, very
your
good,
permission.
very good. Yeah, all that here it is again, the Google file with the resources. I'll post it in the chat so that you can take it from there and all sorts of stuff. And again, my website, deborahhealey.com, has a lot of stuff on a lot of topics, including games. So you can find games that you can use in different skill areas, different kinds of games as well. Suggestions for using games. I want to thank you all for being here, for sharing your time with me. It's I know you're busy people, and all teachers were busy people, and so it's been nice to be able to share some ideas with you, and I hope that you've had some benefit in coming and spending the time.
Okay, on behalf of Vietcong, I would like to sincerely thank you for your inspiring and practical webinar on gamification, and you have clarified some of the things that we misunderstand, like the concept of gamification and games. Yeah. And your insight and example have given us valuable perspectives on how to make learning more engaged and effective. We truly appreciate your time, your generosity, and contribution to our professional community. And here is something that we give you, and we will send this certificate to your email. And participant, if you decide to take part in, the first VietCon International Convention in Ho Chi Minh City on the 18th October this year, you will meet Deborah again, because she is one of the keynote, but she cannot come to Vietnam, but she present her presentation, online. So thank you very much for your generosity. Yeah, and if you take part in, the convention, you will meet Deborah again. And I do hope that next year we will bring you to Vietnam for. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
being in Vietnam. I had such a good time in Hanoi. So I'm always happy.
Have you been to Vietnam?
Yes, yeah, I was there not long ago with